Despite the title, the following conversation doesn't need to be interpreted as only about tic disorders. A tic disorder is a signpost for many forms of mental anguish and suffering, trauma, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, even some of PTSD, depression, and addiction and bad habit formation. If you have struggled, are struggling, or know someone who is struggling with any of these problems, if you listen with an open mind and an open heart, then this conversation may be surprisingly of benefit to you. But I'll let you be the judge of that. And please, if it does help you in any way, let me know. I'd love to hear it. So thank you and enjoy.
Alrighty, Lee. Awesome. So nice to meet you, brother.
Nice to meet you, Darren. Thank you for having me. It's so wonderful to be on here. This feels like such a great opportunity, so thank you.
So I'm going to give a little bit of context, right?
Yeah.
To how we met. I mean, we're meeting now for the first time, but Lee reached out to me via email about, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, something like this. And I loved your exploration of spirituality and tics. And you were curious and you were open and you wanted to have a discussion. And so we sent some emails backwards and forwards about spirituality, connecting to spirit, and how can that path of awakening or enlightenment be a journey of healing and curing, being the final cure for tics. Right? Yes. And I love this proposition. And this is what I'd love to chat with you about today and explore it, because the way you were using your words in the emails sounded, you see really, it feels like you see really finely, and it was really beautifully articulated. So I'd love to just vibe with you, and let's see where we go. Let's see where we go, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, man. So let's start here. Tics. So you live or have lived or you live with tics right now? What is that thing for you? What do you experience on a regular basis?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. For me, it's been ever since I moved to Sydney, so probably since I was 5 years old, maybe, since I started school. Since 5 years old until still to today, I've been living with tics, and it's progressed differently. It started really bad when I was younger. It was more like Tourette's. I was actually diagnosed with Tourette's when I was younger. It was more like yelling, sort of just weird sounds, donkey sounds even, stuff like that. Just flinching, twitching, neck, and very, very visual things. Now it's more sort of gone. It's almost like I've taken that and tried to make it more subtle, just out of like social embarrassment purposes, just like try to put it into something people won't notice, like where I'm looking or something. That'll be a tic. Or like in my hands and stuff like that, like doing things with my hands where people aren't always looking, things like that. And nowadays it's more, it's actually become less of a big physical movement, more of a tension. More of like a low, and like I'll do this and squirm and I feel like I'm sore and things are weird, but it's actually just it's almost like that tension itself is like the same fundamental energy that's creating the tics is in that tension, and the tics have become less exclusive and more kind of background and ease kind of thing. And the way I see spirituality, or the way I've been learning to see it over the last couple years, but more passionately since the start of this year, is that the spirituality thing is kind of it's looking into what transcends suffering, I suppose. It's the true nature of the self as awareness, as uninterpreted, judged awareness, as presence, rather than this tight, tense person with a story and a past and oh my god, what's going to happen because in the past this thing happened. And I don't even I have some ideas, but I don't even remember exactly what kind of trauma kind of triggered my tics to even start out to begin with. But all I know is my tics are a projection of a future tragedy. So my tics are like, you're going to die. So there's something bad's going to happen. And if you don't compensate for that with a physical something, something bad's going to happen, because it's almost like a game I used to play with myself as a kid, like an OCD thing. Like, if you do this, then, something bad won't happen and you'll get the result you want. And the entire idea behind spirituality, the way I'm seeing it, is it's getting rid of that list where these are the things I don't want that I'm running from, and these are the things I do want that I'm running towards. It's kind of getting rid of that story and that narrative and kind of accepting things just to be rather than to accumulate. So in that essence, I find spirituality, the seeking of the true awareness self, rather than the personal ego identified, story identified, problem identified mind self. I find a peace in there, in that silence, in just practicing that awareness. It's not total, but it's a practice. It's a you know how it is.
I do. I can relate to. I'll share a few words on my spiritual
please.
connection and journey too, because when I started Motor Tic Mastery, I had this judgment in myself that if I'm going to teach the stuff that's worked for me in letting go of these movements and these tics, I don't want to sort of speak about it from the perspective of God and spirituality, but I want it to be really rooted and grounded in stuff that's accessible to everybody, because not everybody is there or ready to connect to the beyond or the divine or the place that is here for all of us. But we are also lost, as I see, as a species right now, where our God is money and materialism, and we've forgotten a deeper divine connection to something greater than ourselves. And for me, spirituality absolutely was a big part of my journey. And in fact, I was very much atheist for a long time of my life, and to the point where, like, then maybe I was agnostic, because I was like it's not even a conversation. It's not even something I'm interested in. I'm just so beyond even thinking about having an opinion of this God thing. Right? And I was so disconnected. But then what happened was magic mushrooms and ayahuasca and LSD. If I'm being really honest, psychedelics were a way for me to open my doors of perception. Now, that's just one door. There's many other doors, of course, right? People find God in religions. In religions, they are doorways and paths to find this place beyond. But it sounds like you've gone on your path with some more modern day teachers like Muji and other teachers like this who are incredible. And so for me, like, seeing what was beyond the veil of my small egoic, like, I am this thing, I am me, and there's only me here, and I have to control everything. Yeah, like, that's how I used to live. And I'm like, oh, there's something beyond me. There's intelligence beyond me, and it's so clear to me. I don't have to prove it to anybody, because I know it inside myself. Yeah. But it's hard to talk about it, because other people aren't necessarily using the same language or perceive things the same way or differently. Language breaks down.
But they know it. They know it in the best of moments. And if I ever try and talk to someone about, say, spirituality, I try and tell them, think of the moments you weren't thinking. Like, what are your most joyous moments? What were you thinking about? Nothing. I was like, that's who you truly are. And it's like, so I'm always that joyous person. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what you were doing. In that moment, you weren't thinking at all. It's the doing that brought that non-thinking self out, that presence, that flow state of being. And that's exactly, that's the only way I can see to translate when people haven't kind of been initiated into the language, because it's like speaking a new language a little bit. It's a whole different world, except for it's more natural than the rest of the world, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's a difficult thing. So I totally get that. So I actually feel the same way, and I'm thinking about starting to do the same thing myself, as you are, not with tics necessarily, but just with spirituality and just sharing and trying to kind of destigmatize spirituality in a more public way. A little bit of like something that's drawn me into doing this recently. It's probably the same. They call it the pull of grace or whatever. But we'll leave those specific things aside. It's probably that same energy that actually made me contact you and get in touch and get more connected about these things. And tics one, but spirituality is another one, and they're so interrelated because tics are just a placeholder for suffering generally. Yeah, tics are actually, in some way, the only way I can look at it, if I can have a choice at all, is, which of course there is one, is to look at it as a blessing, because without the tics, there wouldn't be enough to want to solve. You'd be comfortable, and you'd be comfortably suffering instead of vigorously suffering and then fixing that. You know what I mean? Like, by ticking is a highlight of day-to-day general human suffering. It's like a very strong pinpoint manifestation of the mind's noise and the rule of the mind and identification. It's a less subtle version. It's a more gross version of that. And because it's so intense, we look at that and we go, okay, we realize at some point this is enough. We just go FTE and F this event. We just go, no, screw this. And we just we find something bigger than whatever it is that's causing us to tick, and it's a blessing in that way. And I find it serendipitous. I find it with a quality of serendipity that you have also found a spiritual path through tics, because it makes sense, because it's just the kind of thing that wants to bring you forward into fixing that suffering. And in that way, it's a blessing, because then it fixes all the little sufferings as well. It becomes bigger than you and your little tick problem, like us and our little tick problem. You know, it becomes bigger than us, and we realize it's bigger than our person, at least bigger than the personal problem. We realize the tick is just a giant manifestation of personal mental problems, and then we can kind of surpass that and all the other stuff. You know, all the other personality, mental, past problems and future projections and stuff. So it's a blessing in that way. So it pulls us, it like makes us overcompensate for our own good. You know what I mean?
I think that's worth a pause just for this moment to allow us to see that the tick can be a blessing. Because, you know, I've received so many emails, Lee, from people who are in so much suffering because of their body, right?
Yeah.
There's so much suffering. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't stop it. I'm in so much pain. When is this going to, like, it's constant. Like the suffering that is involved in this is deep. And I also acknowledge how the tick itself, the movement of the body itself, is a symptom. It's a symptom of something going on under the surface.
It's a big resistance.
The big resistance. I love. Okay, let's explore that in a moment. There's like, okay, I'm going to use symptom for a moment, but let's come back to that in a minute. And so as it's what was the word you used? I want to go there now.
What, the resistance?
Resistance. I like your perspective. It's a resistance to something that's going on inside of us. There's like the tick is the movement that's happening because we are possibly fearing an expected result or outcome or something that's going to happen, right? That's how you see. That's how you see the tick.
It's a resistance of what's now. It's a rejection of what's now, what's here. It's a way subconsciously to grip into that identified fear of the future, because we've identified so strongly with the past.
A grip into the identified. Your words are great. The grip into identified what?
It's like it grips you into identifying with future fear, and as a person with a past problem, and those past problems make you project the future fears. Because the way that for example, Sadhguru and Muji have made the mind in their far more enlightened self-inquiry, the way that they see it is something similar to the mind isn't necessarily yours. It's just the mind. Everyone has one. It all works in a similar way. It's a tool. Yeah, it's just a tool. And the way that that tool works is it creates accumulations, which you call yourself, your story, your past, and then it uses that to project into the future to make sure it never happens again. And, that's just obviously basic psychology kind of stuff. But I love how they talk about that in spirituality, because that's, for me, the way I see my tics. And one of my biggest questions to you was, how do you see it in your realm? If this tic is specifically, if this kind of web of tic interrelations is just an individual case, or if it might actually be like this for everyone, like for you, for example. So it's like taking past trauma, and it's as the mind does, it projects that past onto the future to make sure whatever happened doesn't happen again. And that's what the tic is. It's a resistance past. It's a non-acceptance to the past. That's also a way to, not necessarily a way, but what that does is also reject now. What Eckhart Tolle talks about in like Power of Now, one of his books, is any problem you could ever have comes from non-acceptance of the now, capital N, what is happening right now.
So if we say the body is moving and the body is about to tick because it is living in the past in that moment. So the body is about to tick. There's an impulse because it needs to do something, brace or something, or move or something, because it knows something bad's going to happen, because it's not living in the now, it's living in the past. That all feels so true for me and aligned and real for me, the way this is being described. And at the same time, the body is holding the score. It's as if the body is in some way, pockets of trauma is still stored in the fascia tissue of the physical body, which is creating the memory and the movements even before the mind can think about it. It's like or the small mind. It's as if the body is so scared. If it is fear we're talking about. And it might well be fear. Or only fear.
Many subtle variations that are fear-based. Because fear wears a lot of different names,
So how have you been using this seeing, right, in exploring spirituality in the context of the suffering and the tics? How are you using this framework for yourself to find your way through, beyond, or in reduction of tics? How's this helping?
Yeah. So it seems, and tics are incorporated as a strong manifestation of that holistic suffering. So the tics get targeted in the same breath of dealing with identification and attachment from past or future, and accepting the now more. So spirituality for me has almost automatically been solving tics. And when I actually apply it intellectually towards tics, the concepts, and I direct that focus to be more one-pointed, then the tics really go away. Like if you set an attention with spirituality, and if you can realize that you are not necessarily the person, but the awareness of that person, you are behind the thoughts, then you can start to kind of make a preemptive awareness strike on the tics. So if you can be aware of
a preemptive awareness strike on the tics, I love that.
Like yeah. So you can just, as you practice spiritual seeking, your awareness generally improves, and your self-awareness, but your true self-awareness, not the usual self-awareness of I'm doing this, maybe I'm being a dickhead, It's like not just awareness of your ego, but true self-awareness.
I want to
doing that,
jump in.
self-recognition.
There's just something that's just catching me. I want to share it.
Go.
Preemptive awareness strike on the tics. So who's doing the strike?
The awareness self. The self isn't necessarily a strike, but the person sees it as a strike. It's more of you can surround the tic with a loving acceptance and awareness before it starts, because you rest in that state more. And it's beautiful. It's like being in, yeah, it's exactly like that. It's like being in one of those float tanks.
Yeah.
But the float tank is just made out of this solid lightness and ease. And that's what spirituality has done for me. And that ease has made me accept the now more, being the now more. And then that has naturally just dissolved the past and future worries and identifications. And if there is a moment where I'm strongly identified again, I'm snapped back into the personhood and I'm right back, not where I started, but if there's a high moment of stress and things are going wrong, and even when things aren't going wrong, but I'm just very focused in something and I'm highly engaged in the thinking mind, even when that comes, and that still does come, especially if I'm doing some sort of like video editing or audio editing or some sort of inside highly thinking work, which doesn't really have much space to just be. It's very channeled. Even when that comes up and tics start, sometimes the tics will run away because the awareness isn't your person. How do I explain this? The clouds have come over the sky, kind of thing, and you start to see everything through these clouds. But then you take a moment and you just rest in the silence and just do a self-recognition just for a minute, and then those clouds begin to pass kind of by themselves again, and you're able to again soak in that recognition of the truth, is how I could put it honestly. It's a recognition of the truth, because tics are they're an illusion. And it's like spiritual teachers say all suffering is an illusion, and people hate to hear that. I hated to think that, but I realized it for myself. I just realized this is the exact same thing in my head as being angry at someone that cut me off in traffic. Like, they've had a bad day. I've had there's no real bad days, but let's just say it like this. They've probably had a terrible day from their perspective, and all these things are going wrong, and they've misunderstood something that's happened, and then you've misunderstood something's happened, and then there's like clouds fighting each other, and storms and lightning striking each other, and it's all child in the background of the sky. It's like you are the stage that the characters are dancing on between good and evil. And if you realize you're that stage, you realize you don't have to identify with the tragedies or the good that's happening on that stage. You can just observe. And that observation naturally comes with that peace and solidity and lightness and joy. And there's a certain lovingness to all that, because you just appreciate it all, because it's no longer heavy. And the tics are the same, the exact same. It's no longer as heavy. You can appreciate the mind, and the tics are there. I see you. It's a fun game almost sometimes. If you're able to stay aware and stay grounded and stay present, and a more common word would be mindful, which is mind empty, really.
I'm reminded of Ram Dass's "I am loving awareness," because this is to me, this is what you're talking about and being in, even as you're speaking right now. I see a man embracing that loving kindness and awareness of himself and others who obviously are in suffering, in talking about tics, right? Loving awareness.
Self, I'd say, rather than myself per se, yeah. Self, and the self is in all people. So you can kind of relate better.
So true. So true. It's like a few years ago, when I was more into spirituality, I would say, I'm just going to wait until the internet comes back. Okay,
There we
the
go.
internet's back.
It's back.
I more easily, I felt like rested in that place of the one vantage point, or seeing the kindness, the space that we all move through, in, of, and as. And interestingly, over the last year and a half since I moved to Bali, I entered a sort of a new community or vortex of people. And I would even describe it as here, like there's quite a bit of spiritual ego in this community. And I can see sometimes how my egos get caught up being the persona of spirituality, but not actually embodying what I was previously felt like I was closer to. And at the same time, how do we be, right? How do we be
Full stop.
how do we be, right? And also, how do we be in the world when we are relating to other people's egos? And I am here, and I don't live in a world isolated from anybody. I'm in a world, and this is just my personal challenge that I'm experiencing in life. Like I feel as if I know my connection to divinity and to God, like that which feels so close to me all the time. I'm blessed because of this. And at the same time, when I move through the world and I'm sharing myself and I'm speaking, the challenge which and I'm sure a lot of people still face, is how do we stay in that place of awareness whilst turmoil is happening in relation to other people all the time. And that's the game that I'm more learning to finally play day in, day out right now.
Yeah. No, that's definitely one of the biggest parts of the journey, I'd say, in my experience so far. I would agree. I'm right there with you to some degree, maybe to a lesser extent, because I've only been on this path a little while now. But I see what you're saying, because it's easy to get there in some moments, in some meditation, some kriya, some psychedelics even maybe, but it's harder to stay there. It's harder to always be that. And of course and that's why you have your sadhana, your spiritual practice. You wake up every morning at the right time. You do the Western things too, like you do the things that are the best for your mind and body, so they are not a problem for your being. And if you are resting in that experience of being, let's say, then the mind and body aren't problems for you. But while you're still getting there permanently, the mind and body can still be clouds to the sky. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So your morning routine's important for that, but it's what else is beyond that? It's just a constant awareness. It's just awareness is the practice. And then I suppose you get to a point where, in theory, the practice just dissolves as the awareness becomes the living reality for you, which, I mean, at least you're experiencing and living from that. So your personhood isn't in the way anymore. It's I think that's a journey as well of steady realization and sharpening the instrument of discernment in you that decides what's you and what isn't.
So given the way that you see and your journey of connecting to this place, which is here and always here within you on your path, what would you say to somebody right now who is living with tics? They haven't connected to spirituality, or they don't have a sadhana or practice at all, and they're living in day-to-day life in a level of survival, and they're existing in a place of suffering regularly. What one or two small things or tools or takeaway or technique would you wish to share with somebody?
I would say, to me, it feels like having such a strong identity suffering as a tic disorder And it's the same with anxiety, depression, addiction, which I've also struggled with, and I'm sure you have too, because it's all interrelated with tics. The one thing I would say is, without spirituality and without even just the prior prerequisite self-improvement, you're living on accident but trying to get somewhere purposefully. So I'd say spirituality is reading the user's manual for this machine.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'd say pick up the book. That's my tip. There's no specific practice, kriya, yoga. These things are great. Meditation, these are great. Developing a morning routine, it's been fundamental in my journey. Absolutely fundamental. But if it was one or two things I had to say in a short amount of time, I'd say just start looking. Stop being willfully blind to what you know could be a better existence for you. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. We have to take it upon ourselves to change. And a lot of us have been gifted the program of lack of responsibility for ourselves because we've just been spoon-fed everything. Well, you do the school thing, then you do the job thing, and then you get the house thing, and you just do the path that's been laid out before you and the blueprint of being human in Western society right now. And if you take away those beliefs, which fortunately I learned earlier than later on my journey, the only thing that mattered to me was feeling good all the time. Like, feel every day. Every day, can I feel a little bit better? Every day, can I feel a little bit more joyful, a bit more playful, a little bit lighter, a little bit happier? Like, to me, that's the only currency of life. That's the currency. Like, that is my currency that I bring into reality.
I love
so
that.
important. And
it's just the presence of all of it. Just the more presence. How can I be present more tomorrow, more today? Yeah, no, I see that. Sorry, go on.
More presence. I can't remember what I was saying now. It's all right. This is the flow of life.
Sorry.
It's all right,
the way I see your you wanted to keep feeling more good every day, more joy, more light, more thing like that. To me, that translates as what is all of that? It's less identification with the mind, less tics, more presence, more now, less rumination, less pointless thinking. I mean, still thinking as a tool, intellectually, as a planning device. Like, the mind's bloody great, you know. The mind is part of the intelligence that the awareness is as well. It is inside the knowing that is your true self. That is the intelligence that permeates the universe and these kind of things. And that's what is called as God. But so the mind isn't necessarily bad. It's just argument of free will comes up here. It's how you choose to use it, and good versus evil shouldn't be seen so harshly. It's more consciousness versus unconsciousness. And the only way to transcend all suffering, including tics, is just to become more conscious. And just like you said, and that's the exact way that you'd want to do it, is just become more conscious, more present.
More
feel better each day.
More aware, more present. It is like awareness happens when we are more present. And so in this moment, there's a finite amount of energy I would describe in the beingness that which I am right now, an energy, a frequency. There's an energy that I am seeing reality from as. So here it is. And then moving on from there, how much of that energy can I exist with here? In this time space, in this body, in this moment, in these surroundings, in this moment of the neural connections that exist in my being, and this moment of this unique tapestry of fascia tissue and bones and blood and organs that are here. How can I be so here that there is no space and there is no room for the body to do things that, like, it doesn't need to do unless it's not in the moment, which as you articulated a moment ago, is like the I want to use the word, the remuneration of the past, worrying about the past as a projection of the future. And when we get even closer to the now, for me, my body lights up. So as I even drop the words describing the vastness of the nothing, beyond the words that describe the vastness of the nothing or the everything, there is an experience of energy or electricity right here. And in the experience of the energy and the electricity that exists right here, there is then mastery over reality. And that still fascinates me.
Sorry, the internet cut out there for a sec. Maybe it was my side, I'm not sure. You said something about it still fascinates you. Can you repeat that, sorry?
And as we bring the energy into this moment and be right here, right now, my body lights up. And as my body lights up, there is a mastery, in a way, a mastery then of the utilization of the energy field of that which we are. So it becomes less of words to exist from in conceptually, and it becomes more, I am the experience of energy. I am the experience of light moving.
Yeah, so the way I see that is experience is the fruit of knowledge. So spiritual seeking is good, reading the Vedas and the Bible or whatever you need. That's your knowledge, and that's going to help you with discernment. But at the end of the day, you need that experience. And when you experience it enough, tics become a choice. Because when you experience the experience, when your experience is that which is experiencing the person, people call the person themselves, right? Darren is a person, but the experiencer of Darren is what we are looking at. So from that place, it comes down to, lost it there.
We never had it in the first place. I mean,
there's nothing to find. There's nothing to lose.
I have a curiosity. My curiosity right now is like, given how beautifully you're seeing, in my eyes, you're seeing really beautifully on your journey and knowing and opening of spirit, of consciousness, of awareness, right? I'm curious to know where on your path right now do you feel as if there's still something that isn't quite, it's still a bit niggly, or you haven't quite seen, or something it's a little bit stuck still. Where are you there? What might you want to express there?
In a similar way to yourself, as I said, probably in a less experienced way, I'm sort of at the place where I want to rest in the awareness more and stop. I'm in like the oscillatory stage, I suppose, if you can label it.
What's that word?
So I'm oscillatory. So like I'm oscillating, like up and down, back and forth between I am the loving spaciousness and tics are no match for me, the true self, and what is fear, what is success, and what is trouble when the I am is here and the I am is me. Om Namah Shivaya kind of thing. And then I go down to everything is difficult again. You know, and then tics come back and my very being is tight and tension, and not my very being, my very experience as a person, the personal experience comes back. I'm identified with the conflict that's happening on the stage. I'm no longer the boards in which the characters are walking upon kind of thing. I'm no longer the uninterpreted experiencer. I go back towards that that locked in identified person, sometimes it oscillates. It's probably in moments like this where I'm able to stay engaged. Anything that I'm able to stay engaged and focused in with presence it's easy to stay in that awareness, because it's almost like the clouds don't come. Like sometimes I'll finish a deep meditation, and there's certain properties to this meditation that make it more potent to helping tics and suffering in general, and that create that spaciousness more, so to speak. But generally, if I do the exact right things, I can live without tics, without even mildly realizing that I have tics anymore. Yeah, like I'm totally identified from tics in that moment.
Sorry,
internet's just dropped.
What about now? Am I back?
There we go. We're back. Yep. Sorry about that. So yeah, sometimes I'll go. It can last up to 8 hours, and I'll just like not even understand what tics are anymore. Like to the degree that I'm not thinking about it. Like if you're not thinking about tics, it goes away. Like if I'm singing or playing guitar or driving, or like race type hot lap driving, like not just cruising, like dozing off kind of driving. You know what I mean? Yeah, the tics aren't there because you are present, because it takes presence to do those things. You know what I mean? And after meditation, it takes presence to do those things, and then the momentum of that presence carries you. And if you're present enough, and if you can experience that enough times a day, you can stay in this constant refill of presence. But it shouldn't have to be refilled. It shouldn't have to be refilled. It should be something that is unchanging, because that's its nature. As in your experience should be unchanging as the unchanging, rather than coming back and oscillating. And I actually find that sometimes it'll go the opposite way, and after a deep meditation, my mind will come back tenfold with everything it's got, and I'll actually tic worse sometimes. I don't know, I haven't figured out why, but sometimes I've noticed there's a certain dynamicness to it that's quite unpredictable, and I suppose I'm at the stage where it's kind of unpredictable at the moment. So sometimes my mind will fight back, my ego will fight back and be like, no, I'm dying, come back, and stuff like that. Because and that started ever since I had this experience where I came out of a kriya, and I sat for a little bit longer just to see. I was just looking. And I started seeing the tics as like this sort of black cloud, sort of this like black around me that was just encroaching me. And I realized it wasn't actually in me, and I could be separate from it, which is a weird just mental imagining. But it's sort of like an element of discernment. I kind of just realized tics have never been me. I just get into that identification with it again. You know what I mean? I get into that body, that pain body again. I get into that pain body again. So the returning of the pain body and the dissolving of the pain body constantly, many times a day, is where I'm at. Just trying to solidify that unchanging awareness.
It's curious watching my inner world as you're talking. Because I can see you surfing the energy in your words nicely. And occasionally there's a little note of something where I want to drop in some awareness or reflections.
Mm.
And I wasn't allowing myself to interrupt you because I wanted to listen to you.
Yeah, I'm a bit ADHD like that, yeah.
But as we're surfing, it's beautiful, right? And it's beautiful. This is a space you're sharing, and it's beautiful to listen to your words. I'm gonna. There's 2 points that I want to reflect on. So,
please,
the first one is the ups and downs of the oscillation, right? This is, in my experience, how I experienced it too, right? Yeah, it's like some days during my period of healing, there's so much freedom, there's so much spaciousness. And it felt so good. And I'd never experienced anything like it for as long as I can remember. And then like a week or two later, I'm deep in it again. And my body is moving and ticking, and I'm frustrated, and I'm feeling these emotions, and my body is getting tight, and I'm like, I was just there last week. How can I be here now? I was just there last week. How does this make sense? And over time, for me, I got to appreciate the intelligence of what was happening behind me, what was happening beyond me, right? And I'm not doing this. Like that, as I continue to open and flower and awaken, there is a natural ebb and flow in everything, and it feels good and bad and good and bad. But then gradually over time, the good and the bad just move us in the better direction. And the baseline of where the tics were, instead of getting in and out of the tics, then it's just up and down of the emotions kind of above the tics in a way, right? Like for me these days, very occasionally when I'm hyper-focused, stressed for something, for a couple of days, I still feel this urge inside me, right? It's still here on a very subtle plane, but it does not cause me suffering like it did before, if at all. If I'm being honest, the subtle nature to the tightness, I'm still aware of it. And so because I'm aware of it, do I suffer because of it? Maybe, maybe not. And that's a curious just introspection I'm exploring in this moment.
Interesting.
It's a part of me. I am not all light. I am also the matter, the density. I am earth. I am physicality, and I am hell, right? I am as far down into the earth as I am up into the sky. And it's all just a part of this experience, which I am experiencing because I'm here. And I'm learning to love it all. Just learning to love it all.
It's a beautiful play.
Yeah. It's
a play. Yeah. So
I think I'll be learning to love it all until I pass. I don't think it's this is the journey. Can I keep opening my heart? Can I keep sharing myself with the world around me? Can I keep loving? Can I keep expanding? The word influence comes to me, but not influence from an egoic perspective, but influence from I have an energy and a being to offer to the world. And to me, that's what I've taken out of my spiritual journey, is like, I am this which is a gift. And before, it was like I'm just scrambling around in the dark, suffering and being closed, just trying to survive. It's a totally different way of living life.
That's a huge insight. Yeah. Living as an offering rather than a taking. Oh, that's wonderful. No, that's great, Darren. That's really fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was lovely to listen to.
My pleasure. We're coming up to the hour. Yeah, carry on.
No, you go. I'll let you go first.
Logistically, we didn't actually confirm how long we were going to chat for. So
we didn't. No.
So from my side, I have another 20 minutes, but also we can finish on the hour, around nowish as well. So where are you at?
I'm happy for another 20 minutes because I have a few questions.
Cool. Okay, let's go.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious to know, beyond just interesting and useful and productive spiritual talk and sharings, but back to the root of the entire original email kind of thing. I'm curious to know if you're comfortable sharing how your tics came to be, how they started, and what you think they're because of. What you think what happened to that person that made the person tick, you know what I mean?
If I'm honest with myself, I don't know why they started. Having said that, I do remember it was around the beginning of high school. I was 13 years old, and it was like this nose tick like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had some OCD-ish tendencies before that when I was younger. I think it was still kind of a part of my being, but that was never a thing, a concern. That's just looking back and reflecting on the personality makeup. But when I started doing this at school, then it started becoming a thing because it was seen, it was judged, it was shamed. Why did it start there? Why did it really start? I'll speak some words to it, but I don't know. It was scary going to high school as a young boy. Suddenly you're there around these, in the southwest of England. It wasn't like a private school or anything, just a normal public British school. And it was rough. It wasn't like a rough, just a normal school. And there's just a huge mixture of different types of people in this space.
Yeah.
I'm clearly a sensitive person. I didn't know at the time. And I felt like this must have been my way of somehow trying to connect with my body, maybe stay with my body, deal with the feelings that I was feeling. This was me holding back emotions, maybe, like you described it, bracing for something. But or another way I see it in my life is there's always energy moving up and down here, and part of me feels like it had something to do with my third eye closing down because I just didn't want to see what was available for me to see in the school. It was like my third eye closed and I was trying to hold the energy in my system. There's so many perspectives at which I could answer this question from, and I really don't know. I still don't know.
Well, there's a great web of introspection there. It could be any or all of that in a combination of ways. Yeah, there wasn't any specific thing that in a story-ish way that you can connect it to. It just started maybe because of that sensitivity that I also feel, that I also have come to realize my personality makeup to be sort of sensitive to things and pick up on little things, and not always good, not always bad. So could it just be that?
So yes and no, because actually, as you asked there, and you were quite precise with the question, was maybe not a specific thing. There is a memory in my third eye that comes into my clear vision, and there were moments in high school where bullying occurred for me, but it never felt like a big thing at the time. But at the same time, my makeup was to push things down. It wasn't to know how to express, process emotions. I was a young boy in the 1980s and 90s. Nothing about mental or emotional wellness was shared with us. Spirituality wasn't a part of my life. And so emotional situations wasn't something that I could process or integrate or move beyond. So all of those emotional situations at school were just stored in my body and just pushed down.
So maybe, because I find that to be my main potential cause in just a silly amount of, almost unhealthy amount of introspection, because I should stop caring about the story and focus on what's real. But when I was trying to cure my tics based on before spirituality, just thinking, what the heck's done this, and what kind of therapy do I need for this, and all that kind of crap. And I've thought about it, but I've only just realized it recently when something's happened, and I'll get to that in a bit. But suppressed emotions, I've realized as a person, I've never really dealt with emotions properly. I was never react in the moment, and I'd be like, why am I numb to this? And then later it would come out, or it would come out slowly over years. Like I'd see a movie and the grandparents are dying, and then I'd cry out of nowhere, just like tragically crying, and they're like, why? It's like, because I never processed this thing that happened with my grandparents or whatever it is, And maybe that's exactly what tics are for both of us, and maybe that is a somewhat global thing to a combination of extents for all, maybe most ticking or people with tics. Maybe it's a suppression of emotion, because, and you know more about this than I would, but I read somewhere, I believe it was in Eckhart Tolle's book, that emotional trauma is stored in the body, and that tension gets stored there, and emotion is the body's reaction to the mind, to thought, something like that. And I recently had a very intense kind of hot oil, hot stone Thai massage, and I've had a few, and they didn't quite achieve what I was looking for, because then I have like 10 knots in my upper back, in my shoulders and things like that, just from tension, and my neck always stiff, and it's just, anyway, it's coming down after this massage, especially because this massage afterwards, basically, I was crying uncontrollably after this massage, and it just burst out of me like a rocket ship. The massage finished, she walked out, and I was just head in hands. It just built up all this, and it was a relief of all that stored trauma in the body getting released through that massage. And in the massage, I was feeling quite, not sentimental, quite like serious and solemn, relaxed, but very intensely present, but also there was this underlying sense of something, and I didn't know what it was. I just kind of laid there and I was like, yeah, this is really fucking painful, but I'm sure it'll do the trick. And then when the pain stopped, and it was a very painful massage, but I allowed it to be because I needed kind of that work. She was kind of putting the muscles back into place almost. And afterwards, just sea of emotions, and I was crying all the way to the car with my girlfriend, and she was comforting me. I was sitting in the passenger seat. She was driving at that point, and I just couldn't stop crying, and my mind wanted to make up all these reasons why I'm crying and things, and I'm just realizing it's just because it's just the body. It's just the body and all the emotional trauma coming out, and that's when I realized tics have more of an effect within the body than I ever realized. Yeah. And you can't neglect the body in this scenario. There has to be, as you teach, a loving touch, a loving presence, an acceptance, a recognition of the body and its trauma, that because it's directly connected to the thoughts as well. Because I was very more psychoanalytical about tics and a little bit less grounded. I was thinking it all comes from thoughts. I should be able to control my mind. And that's why I got into spirituality, because it was about sort of, in a way, bypassing the mind, sort of not attaching or identifying with that story, but allowing it to pass. And with the body, you could say it's somewhat similar, but there still needs to be an acceptance of that from that place of presence, rather than rejecting those emotions and ticking. And even the other day, I had another experience, which has just started happening a lot recently. As my body, as I suppose, started to heal, maybe, as my emotions have started to release and I've started to accept my emotions through this deeper connection. I was crying again the other day. I just went out to dinner. I just burst into tears. Luckily, I was in the car again. I was driving, and I pulled up, and I just burst into tears. And I was like, why? And I realized I wasn't ticking for the last hour. I was very calm. But in that state, the emotions had time to come up and be dealt with. So it's emotions that never got dealt with.
You described it so beautifully there. Yeah. It's like when we do create space for ourselves, then the mind, body, spirit, whatever we want to label it as, knows what it needs to do to bring the stuff to the surface in order to release it and help us move to a greater state of equilibrium and balance. It knows what it needs to do. If anything, we want to get the mind out of the way to allow the movement of the energy and the emotions to release and come out. And this is it. And it's like every time we tick, we're actually trying to hold back emotions or energies in some way. Like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel this. 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 And like when we really become present and create space and stop and slow down, then we can feel. And there was what I wanted to share earlier to you when you said after meditation, sometimes you created space and then there's emotions. Sometimes that happens because we create space.
Yeah, sometimes you cry after it too. And it's just, always wondered why. Does that happen with you? You ever have just like random crying, and like sometimes you think it's joyful and then you think it's, wait, maybe this is like there's a pain in this crying, and like, why am I crying?
Yes, like, absolutely. Yeah. Of course. Yes. Man, I've been doing the crying thing for years. As a young boy, I didn't cry. It was unacceptable as a young man or boy to cry, in this world. But yeah, I learned how to open and cry in my last relationship, maybe because I felt safe enough to now that I was relating in a way with a depth that I could then learn to open up more, right? And that's a beautiful thing about deep connections and relationships, of course. Not that it's a necessity on a path, of course, either. But nevertheless, it's a very powerful part of the journey of opening and finding love in the self is loving another, because then we see it inside of ourselves because we're experiencing it. But that's a slight segue into relationships there. But nevertheless, when we create space, yes, we have space for the energy and emotions and the traumas to release from our system. This has been a huge part of my journey.
Maybe that's what it was for us, and for many people with tics. Maybe we should offer a question to people with tics and say, what is it that you're resisting emotionally? Is there something that's happened that's what emotions from the past or what emotions now are you resisting? And my tension with my tics is like, this is why I say it's a resistance, because it feels physically like the piston in the engine's not lubricated anymore, and it's grinding on the metal, and it's resistant. And you can't be an effective machine with that resistance going on.
Yeah.
Things are going to break. Like, my body's breaking from tics, or at least it had been. It's getting better now after the right releases, I suppose. And it's all just made me realize, just connecting with my body, even accidentally, it just made me realize it's all emotion based. And the thoughts are a sort of a wake up call. Like, the thoughts are happening, but you can't resist it because the thoughts are real, and the thoughts are not real, but the emotions are real. So the thoughts are pointing you towards an emotion that's subconscious. The thoughts are almost like a signpost to that. Maybe that's what's happening.
Yeah, I see that too. Sure. It's like the thoughts and the emotions work together. Yeah, it's like an emotion creates a thought, but then constant thoughts create the emotions, and they go backwards and forwards. But also, I want to draw the connection between like energy, or we could say spirit, right? Spirituality is that which is the energy of everything. And to me, energy is just emotion. Emotion is how we experience energy through and with the body. And so to me, when we talk about emotional spirituality, to me, it's the same thing. Like, spiritual awareness is just emotional awareness, and emotional awareness is just spiritual awareness. Like, fundamentally, I feel them to be the same now. And as I become more in tune with my emotions, and I can see my emotions as greater awareness, dexterity, seeing, presence, I see them as energy, as spirit.
Wow.
And so this is when we let go of the concepts, then we can start really becoming more like just with dexterity, energy and emotion. And then the realm of the mystic comes in, and the realm of like energetic creation and this beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's a feelingness is the way that I've learned to perceive it, I guess. The way that it speaks to me is like, it's a feelingness. It's a sense through emotion kind of thing. But it's, for me, I haven't seen it as directly emotion. So do you see it as it is literally emotion, or is it based around emotion, or strongly identified, or like you can strongly catch it through emotion, or is it?
I would say that emotion is energy in motion. Have you heard of that saying before?
I haven't, but I like that.
Emotion is energy in motion. And so as energy is moving, it hits up against or connects to or moves through the density of the body. So this is, I'm using poetic language. I wouldn't say this is scientifically true, but it's poetically trying to communicate something. It's like where there is the density or the trauma in the physical body, when energy is moving through or brought to those denser parts of the being, the trauma, then emotion is experienced, because the emotion it kind of rises up. Well, I don't like this emotion, right? And then if we really allow, the emotion can release through crying, through stretching, through burping, farting, through yawning, whatever, emotions moving through our system and out. But but we have to have the courage to feel. And back in the day when I used to tic a lot, I didn't have the courage to feel what was really going on inside my body. I was constantly protecting myself with all the ticking. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. And then with presence and openness, finding safety in spirit and knowing that everything is okay, I'm connected, I could then rest, and release.
And that's why the awareness is so important, because for me, when I was younger, I didn't even know it was something I was resisting or suppressing, or the emotion was there at all. It's only through trial and error and curiosity and now spirituality that I've come to any sort of realization that's helpful whatsoever. You know, like that's, if that doesn't speak like wonders to the power of developing a sense of awareness, I don't know what does, because like we said before, tics are a metaphor for all suffering in some sense. And if we can start to dissolve such an extreme unconscious physical suffering and mental suffering and emotional suffering with awareness as tics, then there's really not much that you can't dissolve in awareness. It's
I love that.
Best fluid.
I couldn't agree more. I once saw a diagram with like from some fancy doctor somewhere with tics in the middle, and then there's the depression on just covering over that part, ADHD here, something else here,
OCD,
anxiety, or like, and tics was like in the middle, and it knows a little bit of all the other things. It knows it all because the body literally has got to the point where it's freaking out because it's suffering so much from all that stuff. And so I agree with what you just said. If this thing can be healed, anything can. Maybe that's just our egoic perspectives of the suffering that we've been in, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But for this audience,
well, I think it's I think it's true because, and not from any even identified or egoic place, but just from the fact of spirit itself. If you can overcome tics, is just a kind of suffering. Spirituality can dissolve all suffering if you're willing and open, I think.
So
the way I see it, I mean, I don't see what can't be solved with enough awareness.
I agree. Yeah, and I as we gently close up the discussion here, it's like my takeaway from here today is that in the MTM method program, I'd like to add a section specifically for awareness, on awareness and spirit or spirituality, or the path of that, that which is opening our seeing. And I guess in some sense, the whole program moves in that direction. But there's a specific focus on it, which I think you've brought into my awareness here, which is really helpful. So thank you, Lee. Yeah, thank you.
That's all I could ever ask to offer. I'm so glad about that. Because really, I have you to thank utmostly for having me and solving my curiosities in your awareness. So if I can give a little bit back, I'm glad that's happened.
Yeah, brother. Alrighty. What a solid chat.
Thank you so much. That was great.
I want to do more of these. I got to do. Actually, I'm going to say.
That's great. I talk too much though.
Never too much. Oh, brother. Well, yeah, I'm going to start my day here in Bali now. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So
sounds wonderful. Bali, what's the weather like? Is it pretty over there? Sunny?
Dude, it's beautiful. It's like 30 degrees most days. The rainy season's stopped. There's just a lot of events and workshops and great community here to connect to just different parts of the self. So it's a great place for self-discovery, right? And workshops and classes and learning. I love that stuff.
What a wonderful place to be. That's great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It really was therapeutic almost to connect, just to connect. That's all. Just to relate, to see what bounces and what is received. Like that I'm not alone in the experience of tics, and that anyone listening isn't either.
So true. it's a very isolating condition, and most people don't really want to open up and talk about it. So that's why I appreciate this. But also, like, if anybody's watching this right now and wants to have a chat about tics sometime, reach out to me for putting that out there on the internet. I think that's important to have more of these open discussions about the positive side of the condition, not just like, we got to live with it forever, it's so bad, it's so sorry. Like how can we bring some light to it so that we can actually collectively together change and grow out of it? Yeah.
Yes. You could do group Zoom satsangs for tics.
I have considered that in the past, actually. It's such a great idea. I was doing free sessions a couple of years ago regularly, and there's a lot of meditation-based stuff, but I like the curiosity of the satsang and the sitting in truth and the exploration and the questioning more nowadays, actually. So
yeah, people are opening up a bit more. We're waking up slowly, but it's only because the world needs it more now, I think, in some ways too.
Yes.
Especially because we're so technology and identified and closed off, and we're begging for awareness and we don't even know it. So people accidentally stumble upon the face of grace just a little bit, just a spark, and then that's what it was for me, just a spark, and of course accompanied with the gift of tics for in the case of spirituality. Just a spark just led me on this journey, and I don't think I'll ever stop this journey until I pass, as you said.
I'm suddenly very inspired about creating tic satsangs again. Thank you for dropping that into my field.
Do it, and I'll come on there and I'll post it on social media, and
let's do it. Let's create something.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Right, brother. Right, I need to go. A pleasure. Let's stay in touch.
You go.
And
let's stay in touch.
Chat to you again soon. All right.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
See you, brother.
See you later.